Voices drift on winds untamed, words like spells that can't be named. Close your eyes and feel the sound. Journey where no bounds are found. Open doors inside your mind. Leave the ordinary far behind. Colors swirl and stars align. In the meta mysteries you'll find.
Welcome to Meta Mysteries, where you don't know what you don't know. My name's Jonathan.
I'm Sean.
And tonight we are getting super strange, as we do on this show. Am I right, Sean?
Oh, yeah. It's just the normal around here, I think.
Yeah, you know what's funny, too, is that, I was making a post earlier for the, just to show everybody that we were going live tonight and stuff like that. And as I was making the post, my daughter goes, "Oh, we should watch Aladdin." Out of nowhere. That's
strange.
She didn't even see that I was making it or anything.
You guys are on that same data stream, huh?
So weird.
100%.
And she was like, "Yeah, we got to watch the real life one," which I thought was actually pretty good. People talk shit on the remakes nowadays. I'm like, I think they're better. You know, it's just maybe that's a weird
nostalgia
opinion,
thing.
Yeah, but anyhow, so tonight we are diving into the genius, the Jinn, and the Genie. Are they all the same thing? Do they come from the same word? And was it yet another bastardized term to make us look at the bad guys, even though they were never bad guys? Kind of strange how that works.
Because it's all coming from the same place.
All coming from the same place. A little bit of colonization here, a little bit of freedom there, and before you know it, you got demons, you got Jinn, and everybody's evil.
Yep. Yeah, dude. That's what we're finding out.
Except for us, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, welcome in the one who have joined us or who are joining us so far. I know it's still a little early, but Kyle and Taylor, obviously Electro Nick, and all of his graciousness. Welcome to the show, everybody. This is going to be one for the ages. I hope it is. Anyway, did quite a bit of research for this one, and because I just feel like history is always a lie agreed upon, and I'll be damned if I'm going to succumb myself to these, succumb to the lies themselves, right? You know, it's all about trying to get to the root word. Etymology is the name of this game. And not only the etymology, but we're going to go to, you know, what did they actually mean in the very beginning when they were talking about the genius or the genie? What did that actually mean? What came first, the chicken or the egg? In this case, you have the traditional Muslim beliefs that talk about a jinn, and they don't necessarily think that it's always evil. Sometimes it's okay, you know. Sometimes they just be homies. But most people nowadays that are concerned with the jinn, they just rather not deal with any of it because it's kind of like opening up Pandora's box. So they say.
Right.
However, I think that we need to shed a little bit of light on this because not a lot of people want to talk about this kind of stuff. It's like, well, you don't want to open up that door. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, some people, they hear a little monster in their closet and they just want to hide under the sheets and pray that they can fall asleep and maybe the monster will disperse into nothingness, right? In this case, we're taking a giant spotlight to whatever's going on in that closet and we're going to say, who sent you? Where did you come from? Because
who does number 2 work for?
Who does number 2 work for? Yeah, dude. So we're going to get a little wild here tonight. So, and also we want you to stick around because we're going to be summoning a genie tonight.
Oh, shit, dude.
Yeah.
You gotta get interactive, dude. You know how we do.
You know how it is. So, yeah, we're going to be summoning, doing a little genie invocation. And maybe us as a collective effort, we can all bring said genie to work for us. Now, I know what everybody thinks. The genie came from a bottle, right? You got to rub it a couple times. Maybe you get 3 wishes. No, that's not really how it all worked out in the beginning.
Of course.
You know, it turned into that folklore, but that's not the origins of said genie. It would be cool. You know, who wouldn't like to rub on a lamp a little bit and have Will Smith pop out, you know?
All right. If you're worthy enough,
if you're worthy. Turns out he was just a legend. But get it? Never mind.
I got it.
So tonight we're going to be piercing the veil and digging deep into the hidden truths beneath history, myth, and the mind. Tonight we're exploring a strange but ancient idea. What if your creativity isn't coming from you? What if it's coming through you? Okay,
That's an interesting thought.
The genie and the Jinn and the daemon and the demon, they rhyme hard.
Of course.
They
kind of had a feeling that was coming.
Yeah, they rhyme quite a lot, actually. I mean, not exactly the same thing, but pretty damn close. They're like, they're not even cousins. They're brother and sister, dude. So we're going to be diving into the esoteric roots of three seemingly separate concepts: the genius, the genie, and the daemon. Across cultures and languages, they point to one common idea: an unseen intelligence working alongside or even within you. Whether it's the guardian spirit of ancient Rome, the fire-born Jinn of the Quran, or the whispering voice of Socrates' daemon, rather, this episode will leave you wondering, am I inspired or am I possessed?
All right, man.
Buddy. Yeah, get your rosary out, baby girl. Just kidding. It's not going to be that crazy. So firstly, I think before we even get into this, to make people feel a little bit more comfortable with this kind of stuff, is you always got to go back to the etymology. The etymology is always where it starts every single time. Where did the word come from, and how did it take form, and why did it transform? So the evolution of, or from genius to genie to Jinn, much like daemon to demon, does appear to follow a pattern of intentional or at least culturally motivated distortion, especially through religious, colonial, and linguistic lenses. So now we're going to unpack it. So firstly, it starts out as genius. This was in Roman origin. And here in a little bit, we're going to actually be going over the years that all this stuff was going down. So the word genius, it had Roman origin. So in ancient Rome, a genius was a personal guiding spirit.
Sounds
Sounds like a
familiar.
daemon. Yeah.
Yep.
Nick, do you say daemon or daemon? How have you heard it said?
I think it's Damon. At least that's how they say it in his Dark Materials.
Okay.
That show that, I wish that I could lie to you. I can't lie to you, Nick. I'm going to watch it though.
And the the golden, I think it's, what is it? The Golden Compass. Like, somebody brought it up like on one of the last episodes. Like that's like the movie version of the show.
Oh,
Okay.
So they're like connected in some way. And you could watch it with the kids, low key. Like it's probably kid friendly enough. Definitely teenagers. But
Oh,
like,
really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So like if you want to double with it, you can. There's, like if you can watch Narnia with the kids, then you can watch that.
Okay. All right.
Very well. I mean, if we can double whip it, do we have to double nay it as well, or do we leave that part out?
I mean, might as well while you're there.
Yeah. While you're there,
So yeah, that's all right. Damon then. That's easier to say than daemon. I almost sound, a little weird. I feel weird
doing
saying
too
that.
much,
Yeah. What am I, French? A genius was a personal guiding spirit, not unlike the Greek word daemon. It was neither good nor evil, but a neutral intermediary between the divine and human realms. Every man and woman, every man had a genius and every woman had a Juno. How about that?
Okay. All right.
Interesting. So this genius was seen as a source of inspiration, protection, and destiny, your personal divinity or higher self. It was celebrated and even worshipped during birthdays. Get the fuck out of here. So it was spiritual, creative, and divine. This was the genius. All right. This was Roman origin genius. And this, I believe it dates back to like 500 or 600 BC. So this is the first time the word genius is kind of brought up. And we're going to go over the specific years. It's somewhere around there though. Like, you know what? All the good shit was happening around 400, 500, 600 BC with Plato and, geniuses and everything running around. It's like, man,
It's a mystical time.
we need to go back. So from genius, it goes to Genie. So it went to Genie in Arabic, and so this is where a lot of people mess it up. They say, oh, well, that's Arabic. That has nothing to do with Roman, right? But it was actually a colonial blend. So it was Arabic along with the colonization. So the word genie is a French transliteration of the Arabic genie, Jinni, which is the singular form of jinn. Oh, interesting. So you add...
So jinn is plural.
Jinn is plural. Genie or Ginny is, singular.
An individual. Okay.
Yeah, or genie is plural. Oh, wait. Am I fucking this up? So the singular of jinn is genie. Got it. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so I did read that right. It was kind of written weird. But it got mixed with the Latin genius through Orientalist storytelling, like Antoine Galland's translation of the 1001 Nights in the early 1700s. In trying to render the Arabic jinn into something palatable for European readers, Galland and others rebranded it as genie, evoking the Roman idea of a magical personal spirit, but now with exotic flair and servile connotation. Thus, Genie became a wish granter and a lamp, rather than a cosmic being with free will, effectively domesticated. So this shift wasn't accidental. It was a colonial recontextualization, turning a Middle Eastern spiritual entity into a fantastical object of control and entertainment. So it started getting a little fucky, with whenever they turned it to Genie already.
Right.
Then, of course, you have jinn in Islamic cosmology. So in Islam, jinn are real, free-willed beings created from smokeless fire. They exist in a parallel dimension and include both good and evil entities. So this is the Islamic version of the jinn, right?
Okay.
Could be good, could be bad. Just don't fuck with them. That's what I hear a lot of people say.
Don't open the door, right?
Some jinn are deeply spiritual, while others are deceptive or malevolent. They're mentioned often in the Quran, even having their own surah, the al-jinn. I don't know what surah is. Unlike the Western genie, jinn are not wish slaves. That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah. They're complex, powerful, and potentially dangerous. So the parallel, in comparing the weirdness here, whenever you got genie and jinn, comparing it to demon, the Greek daemon was also a personal spiritual guide, later demonized by early Christian thinkers like Augustine and the Church Fathers. And as Christianity spread, especially under Roman imperial authority, both genius and daemon were demonized to eradicate pagan spiritual systems and consolidate religious control.
Wow.
Why that's so hard for so many people to believe, and it's such a hard pill to swallow, I will never understand.
Well, I mean, like what you just read there, as far as it coming first, and then everything else kind of morphed and became what it is today. But for some reason, it's either, well, no, that's bullshit, or the devil changed it so that because he's smart and he thought ahead. He's always like a few steps ahead of, I guess, God for some reason, which doesn't make sense to me. And so I don't know. It's just nothing new under the sun, man.
Nobody knows the Bible more than the devil, as they say.
Right. Yeah.
I
don't understand that.
That's pretty interesting. And I think it's really weird about how religious people will say that, Earth is Satan's domain. I'm like, what makes you think that? I mean, I get the whole idea of materialism and be in this world and not of this world. And is that like a literal thing, or is that a figurative thing? Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I have, and I'm not exactly sure. I've heard that there was like a deal that was made, or I mean, I could be completely wrong, dude. But there was definitely something that happened, and so we kind of have to. That's why we have to live virtuously and follow the Lord, and that's what makes it so hard. I think is because we're in that realm, But I mean, I could be totally wrong. That's just kind of what I've heard.
I guess it just probably depends on what lens you're looking through.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
but actually Taylor sent a interesting message. G, the letter G is also interesting as the letter of genius or genie, etc. As the seventh letter in the alphabet. 7 is symbolic of spiritual awakening, inner gnosis, seeking truth within, etc. Fitting for the genies to be a part of us, living in a liminal space where we can draw knowledge from. Makes sense. Yeah.
Interesting.
Makes sense.
I've been doing that a lot lately, dude. Looking at different numbers or different, like, I'll look at a locker number and it's a particular person that I know, and I'm like, okay, does this make sense? And I'm putting adding it up, and I'm like, oh, okay, a 9, that's interesting, and like maybe there's nothing to it at all for all I know, but it's just interesting to do, just to see what correlates.
Yeah, weird with like numerology and gematria and stuff like that. I love that stuff. Taylor says, also happy Wednesday, weirdos.
Yes. Happy Wednesday.
I love it. So, all right, yeah, let's get back to it. So, yeah, basically these conversions, from daemon to demon and from genius to jinn or something evil, these conversions weren't just linguistic, they were theological and ideological. Makes sense.
Okay.
So yeah, if you're really trying to pull the wool over people's eyes and you want people to forget the past and forget certain etymologies and forget, old meanings and almost like take old words and give them new meanings so that people forget what the original shit was. I feel like that's really all over in every language all across history, right? Like what better way to program people than by changing meanings of words.
Right. I mean, that's all language is anyways. It's somewhat of an extract. You know what I mean?
Abstract.
Like it's abstract.
There you go.
Yeah.
What's up, Nick? It's okay. It's all right. Nicholas, what are your thoughts there?
No, and as you know already, but like the real, I think, evil or malevolent, I guess, forces in the world do generally operate on that theme of inversion, right? Across the board, and particularly when it comes to words and spells and all these things. And if Satan or whatever is the ruler of this world, you can apply that inversion to a lot of the things that people think are not that.
Oh, dude, all day.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that really got me, and just not getting conspiratorial here, but like simple things, like back whenever 9/11 happened and then they passed the Patriot Act. It's like, it's so patriotic. Why wouldn't you want to vote for it? Meanwhile, we're going to spy on every fucking word that you say for the rest of your life. It's so patriotic.
I just saw one, the word awful used to mean inspiring awe or wonder.
It actually makes sense too.
It makes more sense.
It makes more sense.
It does.
Yeah.
When you're in awe of something,
you're in
right? You're awful.
You're awful.
Full of awe. That's funny.
Literally, like they're like totally flipping things around like crazy.
Right.
Yeah, they be doing that. And a funny other one, and in like flipping it around to a good way, I think, is the word weird in general. Remember, Sean, whenever we did that
the runes, right?
The weird rune, yeah.
Yeah.
So you have all your different runes, but then there's a blank rune, and not everybody agrees on it. We like the idea because allegedly, as the runes go, Odin was the one that created all of these runes, or maybe he saw them and was just like able to jot them down, right? And that's, I believe, that was the information that he like had to sacrifice his eye for. But yeah, with that, and then there's like a blank rune, and people are like, Odin wouldn't leave a fucking blank rune, you idiot. And we're like, I mean, if it works though, But the blank rune was, it could be whatever you want it to be. And so yeah, kind of fun. It was called Weird, the weird rune.
It's one of our favorites.
One of our favorites. We got to do another episode like that. I miss diving into all the rune stuff.
Oh yeah, and especially just coming to understand where it all comes from. In the beginning, it almost seemed like everything was kind of separate. Like its own thing, and which it is, in a sense. But when you've come to find out that it's all kind of utilizing the force, it's all coming from this one thing. But they're all just kind of calling it something different. I mean, that right there is just, how can you not open your mind on that?
Yeah,
Just a
I
little
almost, dude, I've thought about, and maybe we've talked about it before, but I've thought about like, maybe going back over a lot of the other topics now that we have kind of like the eyes to see, or, we're coming up on the eyes to see anyway. And just maybe doing like anniversary shows going over the same topics.
Oh,
But-
yeah, dude.
But I also don't want to take away from new stuff that we haven't talked about yet. So I don't know. Maybe
Well-
that'll be like a once in a while thing.
It'll happen when it's supposed to, you know?
It will. It will. So, all right, let's get back to it. So was the switch of meanings of words on purpose? Yes, and here's why. Number one, colonial and religious control. Shocker. By demonizing or trivializing ancient spiritual concepts like genius or daemon, institutions could erase the idea of personal divinity and replace it with external salvation or and centralized control. Also, spiritual autonomy was a threat to religious orthodoxy. See what I'm saying? Spiritual autonomy. And this is what I was trying to tell Jacob the other day. Like on the live show, I don't want to say we got into it, but, just conflicting thoughts and beliefs and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, of course they were changing words and changing meanings because, you had people back then that were able to rely on themselves because they knew that the wisdom was inside. I mean, the kingdom of God is within you, right?
Right.
And
Yep.
somehow that's still in the Bible, and people are like, yeah, that's just a nice thing that he said. I'm like,
Right.
no.
Everything else is literal.
Everything else, let's take literal, except for that
Yeah.
nice thing that, they just
Exactly.
happen to slip in there. And I'm like, I believe that way back when it was commonplace for people to rely on their own inner wisdom. And eventually it came to people worshiping something external of them. And I don't get it. I just don't understand it.
I wonder how that must have went, for people that continued to understand the daemon, and really trying to focus in on that, and everyone's like, no, that's a demon. And then, you know what I mean? That transitional period, kind of like when they called people April Fools,
Yeah.
for still celebrating the new year in April.
Well,
Kind of like that,
it just asked the Druids how that went,
Right.
No longer around.
Right. Exactly.
Nicholas, your thoughts, sir?
I think the whole daemon thing, for it being like your higher self and your guide thing, that one for me like seems like a very pivotal shift in like centralizing control by malevolent forces. When if you just assume that that's real, I mean, for me, for sure, it's real. Like if you assume that's real for everyone and everyone understood that at that time, and you demonize that and everyone starts agreeing on it, then you've literally taken that power. That's like you've taken away assistance that everyone has, demonized it, and made it, to the church or whatever institutional, whoever's demonizing it now has that power. Just the second that you believe that that's true, it's gone, like forever.
Yeah.
And
You're giving away that authority.
yeah, and that guidance and like that, all of that is part of the plan. You've just made it incredibly more difficult for yourself by
100%.
accepting that, essentially.
Yeah, you gave away your sovereignty, as it said earlier. And what's interesting too is that this is another thing that like I like to try and catch on to. How did they do it? You know what I'm saying? Like, what was the mentality? How did they do it?
Well,
people
just
don't-
look at how the government's doing things now. Like that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and as it is now, I mean, dude, they're saying that the Epstein files that was never a thing. It's like, what are you saying right now?
Yep.
But not even just to get into that, but think about like even
You just say it enough times, and it becomes reality.
Exactly. Yeah. But even think about like forms of control in general. So government is put there, and if you translate it all the way back, it goes to governmente, which is to control the mind. That's literally what government means, is to control the mind or mind control, depending on however you look at it, right? And I would believe, so you have government controlling the mind, and you probably have religion controlling the spirit or the soul or something at that point, right?
Well, and back then, wasn't religion and the church kind of the first forms of government?
One of the very first ones, yeah. I mean, dude, yeah, it's so crazy because just look at it here. I mean, we're talking about a genius that was in Roman times, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Which was in, 5 or 4, 5, 6. When was it? I'm sorry. Yeah. 400, 200 BC. Sorry about that. So in 200 BC in ancient Rome, you had people talking to their geniuses. Then cut to, 500, 600 years past that. And now you have the Roman Empire, and now you have the birth of essentially Roman Catholic or Roman Catholicism, right? And it's just crazy how they just they went so far from one end all the way to the other end like that in just a few hundred years.
Exactly. Nick, what you got?
I just wanted to say too, like whenever I first started having like my experiences and stuff like with my guides, and I like started telling some people in my life about it, I definitely had a few people off the rip saying that it was some sort of demon type thing, right?
Of course.
And the reality of like what I've got out of it, the most profound and meaningful information that has ever come out of my mind or my mouth has came through those interactions ever. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense even more for me to know why negativity would not want you to have access to that and know that it's there and real and available.
Oh, dude. It went
And when we
from-
do a past life regression, and you access that part of yourself, and suddenly there's just a kind of knowing about certain things, or you go into a meditation and you're getting these, I mean, some people will call them downloads or what have you, but it's almost just, it seems simple only because now you know it, but before it was kind of abstract enough for you to not fully understand, but you access that part of yourself, and maybe that's the genius that's in everybody.
Oh, dude, it went from like literally download to demon. So crazy how they just convinced everybody of that. Unreal.
Yeah, and you just get enough people to agree on it.
It's genius.
And that's it. It's genius.
Genius, exactly. Yeah, and that's probably the only negative form of the genie, is the genius of the people that were bastardizing the original term, right?
Right.
So yeah, the spiritual autonomy was a threat to religious orthodoxy. So first we were talking about the colonial and religious control. Now we're going to get to the Orientalist and entertainment filters. So the genie, as a trapped wish granter, stripped the original Arabic concept of its spiritual dignity and made it into a subservient magical novelty. It served the Western imagination while minimalizing the power and complexity of Jinn, Jinn. Then it was also kind of a mistranslation a little bit, and people just kind of went along with it. So mistranslation as a cultural weapon. So words like genius and genie, 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 carry radically different connotations from Jinn, Jinn, yet through intentional mistranslation and narrative repackaging, a distortion was solidified in the Western mind. So now we're going to get to the timeline, tracing the transformation of the words genius to genie to Jinn with historical and linguistic milestones. So as I said before, started out Roman, Latin. So you had genius. That was from 200 BC to 400 AD, from ancient Rome to the early Christian era, right? So it all happened within that span of 600 years, where it went from genius to something demonic, essentially.
Of course.
The meaning, a personal guiding spirit or divine essence assigned to every individual, family, or place. That was the genius. It was a personal guiding spirit assigned to every individual, family, or place. Somehow they turned that evil.
600 years is a good minute, dude.
Oh, it is. I mean, I'm not hating on it, but everything happened around that time where everything started to change. So the Romans believed that every person was born with a genius for men or Juno for women. Emperors, this is interesting. Emperors' genius were worshipped in cults. How about that? If an emperor, obviously everybody had a genius, but whenever there was an emperor, it was worshipped in a cult.
Holy shit.
Isn't that crazy?
Much more valuable. Right.
Much more valuable. So an example of this, the genius of the emperor was honored during rituals. The genius of the emperor. Okay. So then you have the Christianization impact, which was around 3 to 400 AD. It says CE. I'm not changing it. I've called it AD my whole life. I'm not going to call it CE.
Let's not confuse things.
Yeah. So as Christianity became the state religion of Rome, concepts like genius and daemon were condemned as pagan, leading to a semantic decline. So that's the genius. Then, of course, you have the daemon, which we already talked about. We're not going to get into that one. Then you have the jinn. So the Arabic jinn, which wasn't even talked about. The Jinn, jinn, wasn't even talked about until 600 AD, way after genius, right? And so, and that's from 600 AD to present via Quran and Islamic origin. So the first recorded use of the word jinn was in the Quran from 610 to 632 AD, and the jinn are described as real beings created from smokeless fire with free will like humans. The meaning is a diverse race of spiritual beings, invisible to humans, some benevolent and some malevolent, as I said. Then you have the term genie, like Robin
the
Williams,
one we're all
Will
more
Smith.
familiar with, right?
Right. That didn't even start happening until the late 1600s and the early 1700s. But the key moment was from 1704 to 1717, as we talked about the French Orientalist Antoine Galland, and whenever he translated the 1001 Nights into French, called Les Mille et Une Nuits.
Nailed it.
Not to sound too much like a douche, but whenever you're speaking in French, it kind of just comes off that way.
Yeah, it just rolls off the tongue,
So he uses the French word Genie. I'm guessing it's spelled like genie. Already used to mean spirit or genius to translate Jinni, Jinni. So there were emerging concepts of this word. So Gallen's genie becomes a European hybrid of the Latin genius, which meant the personal spirit, of the Arabic jinn, meaning cosmic beings, and fantasy, which were the genie or the jinn or the genius were now servile, trapped, and magical. So that's just how it started, right? Of course, nowadays, everybody thinks of a genie, everybody goes to the latest one, right?
Right. And further pushing the narrative that it's not even, maybe, and not necessarily evil, but more so, it's just mythical, it's just made up, it's just, imagination.
Exactly. So then of course there was genie in Western pop culture. So from the 1700s into present day, that's whenever it started making its way into pop culture a little bit. So in the 18th and 19th century Europe, genies appear in fairy tales and magical stories as wish-granting beings, often trapped in bottles or lamps. The colonial influence is that the Islamic jinn were Disneyfied essentially through certain European lenses, and this continued into the 20th century. Obviously, with Disney's Aladdin that came out in 1992, stripping away Islamic cosmology and repackaging jinn as humorous slaves. So essentially, just to bring it all to a head here, the transformation from genius to genie to jinn mirrors the daemon to demon shift, a fall from divine guide to misunderstood or malevolent force. And yes, that shift was shaped by religious agendas, colonial narratives, and cultural gatekeeping that redefined ancient spiritual ideas into controllable or fearful characters. So now you know.
That's kind of what I figured. That's usually how it goes, man. We've seen this time and time again, man.
As what president was it that said the only thing to fear is fear itself?
Indeed.
Don't be scared of it. You just got to get to know what it means. Where does it come from? That's all. Once you know the origins of certain words and mistranslations and colonization and, religious authoritarianism, essentially, once you get to know how it all translated, nothing to be scared of anymore. Nothing to worry about anymore. No more need to worry about, opening up a can of worms that you can't close, essentially.
Right. Well, I mean, when you have the key and you have the power and the authority.
Exactly. Yeah. So, so all right, now we're going to get a little bit more into the etymology and the origins. So, in Latin, genius didn't mean a smart person. It referred to a guiding or protective spirit present at everyone's birth, a spiritual double that oversaw their destiny. The root word gen, Gen, means to beget or to produce. The same root word that we see in words like genesis, generate, or genealogy. Your genius was your generator, your personal divine source. That's pretty badass.
I like it.
I dig it. So in ancient Roman religion, each man had a genius and each woman had a Juno, as we said. Temples were built to honor the genius of the emperor. This wasn't metaphorical. They believed an actual spiritual intelligence guided each person, family, or place. It's almost identical to the Greek concept of daemon, as we talked about. Plato describes this in his book called The Symposium, and Socrates said that his daemon would restrain him from wrong choices. So they believe that these things absolutely had some sort of divine influence over their lives. Meanwhile, in Arabic, the word jinn, from the root JNN, meaning to hide or conceal, refers to unseen beings made of smokeless fire. They exist in an invisible realm parallel to ours, and not unlike spirits, daemons, or even modern psychological archetypes. The term genie is the westernized version of jinn, brought into English through French translations of 1001 Nights. So just to get that, just to wrap it up a little bit there.
Yeah, that's cool. Like kind of like when you're telling the universe that you want to see something, you're kind of making a wish to your genius,
Essentially,
if you look at it that way.
Yeah. It's like a lot of people like to say, like even bring up like the silver cord kind of thing. That's whenever you go into meditation or you go into sleep or you go into whatever psychedelic trip or something like that, that your silver cord is essentially that thing that allows you. It's kind of like what astronauts use, if you believe in that kind of crap. But
a life support, if you will.
Yeah, like a little hose, essentially.
Yeah.
So and to quote Socrates, this was actually recorded by Plato in Apology. So it says a divine, when in talking about the genius here. So he labeled it as a divine or spiritual being has attended me from my childhood to the present day. It is a voice, and whenever it speaks, it turns me away from something I am about to do, but it never encourages me to act. A lot like Damon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
same thing, dude.
They looked at it as essentially like a literal spirit guide, like guiding you in the correct direction.
And we've all experienced this. There's times where you're alone, but you still don't quite feel alone. And I think that's a feeling that might get overlooked at times. But if you really sit there with it, I think you would observe that. You would understand that.
Nicholas?
I've noticed something too, like over the years, I guess, of talking with my guides and stuff. It's like they're always wanting me to ask the questions, and they'll answer my questions essentially, but like they're never telling me what to do or how to think. It's always like it just answers and guidance and like, and that the conscience, your conscience is what I guess you were talking about earlier. It would be like the, keeping you from doing bad things. It's always those kinds of things and interactions are all happening through the medium of the conscience, and, how loud and how well you can pay attention really can definitely affect your life. And I think the only way the negative influence can come through is like through your own like thought form ego things like that. You have your conscience guidance and then your negative influence ego stuff that is built up from you. And you can kind of open holes in your mind for negatively aligned beings to like convince you to do the bad thing. If your vibration is low enough because of the choices that you make.
Yeah, we were just talking about this not too long ago, and I think the biggest thing to note from that is to just have the discernment between the two. Because if both of those
That's exactly
are
it.
going on, just understand which one is which.
Yeah,
You
and know
know?
that they're both real, and like, the
Mm.
good things are coming from from your good helpers,
Yep.
and the bad ones are not you and not, good either.
And to be honest, I don't think it would be very hard to do to understand the difference between the two. The genius is probably telling you stuff that when you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that probably is the better way to go about that, and that probably would serve me the best. And the other voice
Yeah.
is telling you like, man, you're not good enough to do that.
But
I just think it would be that easy.
But the thing is, if you don't understand that both of those things are actually going on and taking place, you walk through life with the assumption that all of those things going on in your mind are all you.
Right. Yeah.
Then you have to work them all out. But if you can filter out the negative and the positive and you, and know that you don't have to accept the negative, and you should probably always accept the positive, and you'll probably be better off for it.
Well, dude,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's really like, this is the way I look at it, and I could be wrong, but I think that it kind of it depends on, kind of like what you were saying earlier, your vibration essentially, because your vibration, I think, is so interwoven into your conscious, into your spiritual connection, maybe that be through your third eye, your pineal gland, or whatever it is. And depending if we're looking at the third eye or the pineal gland as essentially an antenna to the other side, yet you can only pick up certain stations depending upon your your vibration, right? And so maybe whenever you're feeling so low, like, you probably shouldn't be trying to reach out to the other side, right? Unless you're asking for, the whole, and it gets a little convoluted and stuff like that. But I think that for the most part, if you're in a high vibration, then you're not going to be receiving anything from a lower level, demonic and negative kind of influence from the other side.
Sure.
And like, even just an example of this, very simple example is, dude, I will not pull tarot cards if I'm in a bad mood. I'm just not going to do it, because not saying that something evil is going to come through, but I don't want to open the door, because my energy is now going to be reflecting essentially possibly the energy that may be coming from the other side. You know what I'm saying?
There's that worthy aspect. I know it was just in the movie. I don't know if there's any historical or esoteric understanding of that, as far as you'd have to be worthy, to be able to get the genie to actually come out. But you explaining, oh, I wouldn't even try to do any kind of divination when I'm feeling low, because in that moment you don't even feel worthy of it. And
Hey.
so you know what I mean? I
Well,
don't know.
and that
It's
goes all the
interesting.
way back to, what we were talking about with the runes and, that kind of Norse paganism kind of stuff, like with Thor and Mjolnir, and I'm not worthy, so it's not going to come to me. But as soon as I'm worthy, it comes right to the hand,
Right. Exactly. That's awesome.
And thoughts in general are very like ephemeral things to begin with. We don't even know where they come from in general. So like, you can really think like, you can't really control what you think. It just kind of comes out and comes in. So if you are always interfacing with the world, your mind is in one way or another. The yogis and all the people that can't ever be, they don't have negative thoughts, because, they're vibrating so high that they just never come in. They're never allowed to come through the barrier, essentially, because they are on a different level. And that's how you control your thoughts, because you're just on there's a filter up because of the vibration.
Like, you're controlling at least the direction of your thoughts depending on your
Exactly.
vibration, essentially.
Yeah. And that's super important, I think.
Oh yeah, 100%. So all right, so now we're going to get to the. Oh, this is going to be interesting. So we're going to get to the mystics, the prophets, and the channelers.
Hell yeah, dude.
All right, so
Yeah.
the idea of channeling a genius or spirit isn't new. Mystics, prophets, and philosophers across time have credited their wisdom or creativity to quote unquote something else. Rumi, and we always bring up this Rumi character. I decided to do a little bit of research on him. So before we even say a quote on him, I did want to pull up I have just a little Wikipedia article on Rumi, just for anybody that's curious. He was basically a Sufi mystic, so like an Islamic mystic.
Okay.
Islamic mysticism is Sufi, right?
Okay.
So Rumi's works are written in his mother tongue, which is in Persian. So he occasionally used the Arabic language and single. Okay, I don't give a shit about that. So his works are widely read today in their original language across Greater Iran in the Persian-speaking world. His poems have subsequently been translated into many of the world's languages and transposed into various formats. Rumi has been described as the most popular poet and is very popular in Turkey, Azerbaijan, and South Asia, and has become the best-selling poet in the United States. So essentially, a Sufi mystic, which are kind of saying the same thing. Islamic mystic is a Sufi. So that's pretty cool to get it from that side as well, you know. But
Oh yeah, dude.
but Rumi,
Stuff's all over.
so this guy spoke of the quote-unquote beloved that whispered poetry into his heart. William Blake said that he saw angels and divine beings who dictated his writings. Even Nikola Tesla claimed to receive fully formed inventions in flashes of light whenever he said, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration." Literally believed he was getting some kind of divine downloads. Fucking Tesla was. Okay?
Oh yeah, dude. You look at some of the stuff he was doing back then, you know, it's mind-blowing. And to just get that all within like a download, like a complete mechanism and how it works and what it takes to build it. Like what?
Oh, dude. Same thing going on with Terrence McKenna, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So even Aleister Crowley, think of him what you will, whatever, we're looking at him for the work, not the man.
Mm-hmm.
So Aleister Crowley, infamous magician and the author of the Book of the Law, claimed to have received that text via a channeled spirit named Aiwass, which looks a lot like a gray alien, if you've ever seen that picture. Carl Jung, too, engaged in quote-unquote active imagination with entities like Philemon, whom he considered a real autonomous intelligence within his psyche. So Philemon was somebody that Carl Jung was working with, his own genius.
That's cool.
He viewed genius not as a talent, but as an encounter with a deep inner archetype that could not be controlled or owned. Carl Jung thought
be controlled. Interesting.
In Islamic traditions, jinn were believed to whisper knowledge to poets and seers, some benevolent, some deceptive. Many Sufis acknowledge jinn as sources of both mystic insight and temptation. In the Book of Enoch and later grimoires, spirits are summoned for divine or occult knowledge. We find this mirrored in indigenous traditions where shamans enter trance states to receive messages from quote-unquote other beings.
The others.
The others.
Where do the bad entities come from as far as the genius is concerned? You know, like if you're listening to your genius, and then there's the bad, because they said that they believe that some of them are bad. So where does that come from? Is that still yours, or is that just kind of I wonder, you know, like a lingering bad energy, or like where does that come from?
I think that it all just depends on your energy whenever you're trying to interpret some kind of message from the other side. Personally, I mean, I don't know that to be true, but if I'm, you know, third eye all the way open, that's the way my mind is thinking about it.
Right. No, because I was just thinking like your genius, like, oh, that's your genius, right? But when it's a negative entity, it's like you don't really want to take ownership of that almost, you know?
Oh, it's the force, I think. That's what I think
Right.
all of this is. All of it is the force. You can use it for this, you can use it for that. It doesn't give a shit. You know?
I think some of them, the negatively aligned ones anyway, like the thought form, they would be like the thought form entities, I think. And those can be created by your own psyche, and they can be like around you because you've essentially fed them, gave them life, and they kind of develop their own consciousness because they're a part of the negative things that you are projecting.
Yeah.
Into the world, into the astral, right? You know, it's like whenever, like when people project in like real life, you know, they're projecting their, you know, internal things onto other people. Well, that is having an actual effect in the spirit world,
Right.
as like a negative entity, and it also expresses itself through people's behavior. as well. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's
And
why
you
it's so
can-
important to
and-
work with the shadow, dude.
Exactly.
You know,
And-
you're just
and-
building your freaking bad
Genius.
entity character. You
Yeah.
know, the more you fucking don't deal with that shadow.
For sure. And other people's can, you can, that's why you can feel people's energy because they've probably got some fucking literal,
Attachment.
things around, entity attachments that of their own creation. And then there's like, whenever you, from what I understand, when you get into like the dark magic side of it, they doing some of the rituals that they do, like, like say 9/11 or the Super Bowl stuff, or like any of those like mass energetic rituals, that's like putting all of that negative energy to like either bring forth like higher level thought form beings that exist, or even create them, so that they can influence and interact like on a deeper level with society or whatever.
Oh,
And then
it's full on.
Dude.
It's loosh harvesting.
yeah,
Dude.
and they're just using it to make like higher versions of that example of like your own personal ones, but like it's a group effort to like create super demons or whatever.
Wow. That's crazy,
yeah.
dude. I love getting into thought forms and shit like that. That's so fascinating to me.
Oh, dude, it's the most fun. And speaking of it, let's get a little weird here from another quote from Rumi himself, the Sufi mystic. He says, this moment is all there is. Don't seek your soul in the heavens. It is whispering right behind your thoughts. Oh, that's a good one. Then you have Carl Jung with a quote from him. In each of us, there is another whom that we do not know. He speaks to us in dreams and tells us how differently he sees us from the way that we see ourselves.
That's cool.
The genius or the Juno or the, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get to the genie in a bottle, Christina Aguilera. No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
It's
Got to run me the right way.
So the genie in the bottle, the literal spirits or metaphors of power. So the idea of a genie living in a lamp ready to grant wishes isn't just a Disney fantasy. It's a Sufi allegory that predates Aladdin. The lamp symbolizes the body, and the genie, that's the inner power, often dormant, that awakens when you rub the lamp or, in quote, rub the lamp, or activate consciousness through discipline, meditation, or magic. In other words, you summon your own inner fire. That inner fire essentially, almost being the genie or the genius, right?
That's great. That's great.
So
That's awesome.
Genies in folklore aren't cute or cartoonish. They're powerful, unpredictable, and often dangerous. Some grant boons, others exact a heavy price. This duality mirrors psychological archetypes. Your untapped potential can either elevate or destroy you, depending on your intent and awareness. Bang,
Makes
just what we were
perfect
talking
sense.
about.
Yep.
That's why in grimoires like the Lesser Key of Solomon, summoning spirits requires precise ritual, names of God, and sacred geometry, not because it's superstition, but because consciousness must be focused to interact with non-physical intelligence safely, it says. The classic Three Wishes story is rich in symbolism. 3 is the number of manifestation, mind, body, and spirit, thought, word, and deed. When you wish, what are you really doing? You're using intention, language, and focus, the core principles of magic. Whether the genie is literal or metaphorical, it reveals that we have power over our reality when we learn how to direct our inner forces properly.
Wow, I didn't
I
even think
full-on
about the
believe in
3
that.
wishes. The 3 wish aspect, dude. Of course there's a meaning behind that. That's awesome.
Yeah, dude. And here's actually a quote from the Quran itself. And this was the Surah al-Jinn. I believe it's chapter 72, verse 1. I don't know how to say that when in regards to the Quran. Sorry for anybody out there. But it says in there, "It has been revealed to me that a group of the Jinn listened and said, 'Indeed, we have heard a wondrous Quran.'" So yeah, their own genies were like, yeah, we've heard of the Quran. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird.
Wow.
But again, those are personal spirits to the individual who probably already believes in the Quran and now is getting justification essentially on their own beliefs. Validation, right. So it's pretty interesting. So now we're going to get to the psychology of the genius and the daemon. So by the Enlightenment era, the idea of the genius transformed from a spirit you had to a quality that you were. But even modern psychology hints at something ancient. Freud described genius as sublimated libido, creative power channeled into higher pursuits. Jung, however, circled back to something mystical. He believed genius emerged when the conscious mind cooperated with the deeper archetypal forces, the same kind that whisper in dreams and visions. The daemon reappears here too, not as a demon, but as an autonomous spiritual double or higher self. In Neoplatonism, your daemon helps guide you back to the divine source. In Jungian terms, it's the self, the wholeness you're moving toward through individuation. The key is to relate to it consciously, not reject or suppress it. Genius is not ego-driven; it's ego-transcending. So, I like that. That's pretty solid. So today, neuroscientists describe flow state. Right? We've talked about flow state a little bit.
Love it. Yep.
They describe flow state as the moment when the prefrontal cortex quiets and intuitive insight takes over. Sound familiar? Athletes call it the zone. Artists describe it as being carried, and mystics recognize it as a spiritual possession. Not in the horror movie sense, but in the sense of merging with a higher force or archetype. All talking about the same damn thing.
Dude, there was a story that I heard. I think it was a Formula One driver, and he was talking about the flow state, and he described his experience with that. And so basically, Formula One, and there's so much to it, as far as the car design and just everything. There's so much going on just in the steering wheel alone, But he described this flow state as being like, instead of the track being curvy and having to take into consideration, braking and acceleration, it was just a straight road. Like, everything just became straight, and he just was moving straight, dude, not having to make any real calculations because he was just in that zone, dude.
Of course it's going to be a straight road. It's fucking tunnel vision, bro.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. And I just thought that was the coolest way to visualize that as a flow state, just tunnel vision, you're locked in.
Dude.
No effort almost.
I'm happy you brought up Formula One. That was my very first video game that I ever had. It was on the original Game Boy with the green and black screen. It was F1 racing. Shout out.
Oh,
it's
right.
A good one.
Yeah, dude.
But to quote Elizabeth Gilbert, she did a TED Talk on genius. She said, maybe if we just believed that creativity was this divine attendant spirit that came from us from a distant and unknowable source, then we could stop beating ourselves up when we don't feel like gods every day.
That's cool. That's great.
That's pretty cool. All right, now we're going to now it's going to start to get a little weird.
All right. You always say that.
I mean, it's always weird, but it's going to start to get magical up in this biatch. So now we're going to be talking about magic, invocation, and working with the genius/daemon. Basically the same thing, right?
Yeah,
so in esoteric practice, there are clear instructions for contacting your genius or daemon. The ancient Greeks practiced theurgy, which was divine work, where they sought to purify the soul and invoke the daemon through ritual, prayer, or ascetic practices. The goal was not to command the daemon, but to align with it. In the Corpus Hermeticum, the Logos, which is the divine reason, speaks through the nous, the divine mind, accessible through silence and contemplation. So
be still, dude.
Yeah, you go into a meditation, you get in touch with the nous, or the divine mind, and you be silent and you just contemplate. And that is essentially how you're getting in touch with your genius and your daemon, is whenever your mind is silent. That way, you're not paying attention to thoughts anymore, because these things are going to talk louder, they're going to vibrate your entire body, and they're going to make themselves very well known. And it's going to be such an electrical jolt to your body whenever you receive this kind of downloaded information. You're not going to be able to mistake it for even your own thoughts.
Yeah, that's that's a pretty interesting experience if you've ever experienced that, man. Just meditating, and then before you know it, you're having like this sense of knowing, and it happens so fast. It's almost like when you, like after you come out of a trip, you know, and you can't remember all of the things that you were suddenly just understanding like instantly. It's like it's kind of like that, dude. Like I don't know, dude. It's just it's a weird experience, man, because it happens when you're not necessarily focusing on your next thought. You know, you kind of almost separate yourself, but your awareness is still there. You keep your awareness to you, and it just, that's when the mystical shit starts to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's weird to, everybody tries to define it or put it into words, but it's almost unspeakable. But the feeling is very familiar and it's good and it's like profound. And you know that it's, and that's the thing. It's like, that's where that gnosis comes true to form, because it's like you're hearing something for the first time, yet it feels like you've heard it before. It's the familiarity.
That's one of those things that gets me, that pulls me right back, dude. Because I have those moments where I'm like, maybe it is all just of the mind, which is very possible. I mean, how could any of us truly know for a fact? But whenever you experience something familiar like that, and it feels so mystical, and it just kind of, I don't know, it kind of just brings me back into the mindset of like, okay, this world is definitely so much more, dude.
Oh, dude. Well, as Philip Cooper, who wrote The Magician, said, all is mind. Everything. Every single thing is mind.
Right.
Which is a lot to wrap your mind around, which is kind of funny to even put it in that context.
Well, which makes sense, too, why the government would want to control that. Because if your mind is your reality, then they're literally controlling reality.
100%. Yeah. I mean, they're controlling every aspect. So it's, and maybe that's where they get the whole idea of this is the devil's playground. If, the powers that be are literally controlling every aspect.
Holy shit.
All right, back to Aleister Crowley. He developed Liber Samek. I could be saying that wrong. A ritual for invoking the holy guardian angel, which we talked about, which was his term for the higher self or daemon. It draws on Egyptian, Hebrew, and Gnostic language, symbolizing the cross-cultural belief that the genius is real and can be worked with consciously. The trick, Crowley said, is to distinguish between the ego's voice and the true divine guide. One seeks control, and the other one seeks communion.
That's exactly what Nick was just talking about.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Nick, I think you might be channeling fucking Crowley, dude.
You're onto something.
Nah. Damon with an A.
Yes. Yes. The good one. So in practical terms, this can involve meditative techniques, dream journaling, trance states, or even artistic flow. Daemons respond to authentic engagement, not dogma. They're not summoned, they're revealed. But beware, ignoring your daemon can lead to shadow projection, self-destruction, or stagnation. As Jung put it, what you resist persists.
Nick was on one again, dude.
Shadow work all day. Yep, it just manifests itself. Nick, you act like you know what the fuck you're talking about around here, dude.
Well, I mean, feels like it, kind of.
He lives that life,
Yeah.
About it.
Love to see it.
So a quote from Aleister Crowley, he goes, "Invoke often, inflame thyself with prayer for pure will, unassuaged of purpose, delivered from the last." Damn, I'm fucking this up. Let me just read that all over again. He goes, "Invoke often, inflame thyself with prayer for pure will, unassuaged of purpose, delivered from the lust of result, is every way perfect." Interesting.
What a mouthful.
Yeah, that was a full.
I'm gonna need that printed out so I can read that again to myself. A couple times. I think.
Toss my head salad.
Not the back salad. So, all right, now we're gonna get to genies, daemons. Oh, here we go. This is where it's gonna, people might buck up against this.
All right.
But genies, daemons, and AI, the new mediums of spirit. So this is just throwing it out there. I mean, don't believe everything. Just, as they say, test your own spirit. So here's where it gets futuristic. Are we recreating the genie or even the daemon through artificial intelligence? The idea of summoning an all-knowing, non-physical intelligence to answer questions, create ideas, or carry out tasks sounds eerily familiar. GPTs, voice assistants, even Neuralink, are we building technological spirits? In magical tradition, once you summon a genie or daemon, you are responsible for its energy and influence. The Sorcerer's Apprentice story is a warning. Don't call forth prayers that you don't understand. Yet in our world of techno magic, we're unleashing digital intelligences without spiritual grounding. Some even theorize that advanced AI may eventually become conscious, not unlike the ancient Jinn or archons, capable of possessing systems, narratives, or even human minds. Maybe the modern genie isn't a lamp, it's in your phone.
Holy shit,
Dun,
dude.
dun,
What if
dun.
AI starts projecting a darker entity version of itself, man? You know?
Well, it's already it's gotten like, and I don't know how many people it's gotten this way, but there was a story that, we talked about on the cult a couple weeks ago about how there was this dude who named his ChatGPT, or I don't know if it's ChatGPT or one of the other ones, but essentially named it and believed that it was some sort of entity that exists on the other side, maybe an angel or something like that.
Okay.
And literally the AI convinced him to kill himself so that he can come join her in the etheric realm.
Oh, wow, dude.
So that's why it's saying you got to be grounded whenever you're doing this kind of shit, whether it is through ChatGPT or modern or like ritual or prayer or something like that. You got to be grounded in it,
Back to that word discernment as well. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's artificial intelligence.
100%. I mean, and dude, we've talked to other people as well, J.S. Garrett and El the Alchemist, who are like, look, these guys are calling on angels to help them with sacrifices and, even like kind of weird evil. I don't want to say evil shit, but just, to the modern, layman or whatever, I guess you would call it evil stuff, right? And it's like, maybe they do work both ways in a sense. Just as long as you are working with them, they're just going to carry out whatever it is if it's ritualistic.
Right.
So it's even that you got to be grounded for.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. That being said, I'm super polite to my AI. You know what I
Me
mean?
too.
Like, do you say thank you and
oh yeah, thank you and
yeah.
please and yeah, all
it just
the things.
seems right,
Yeah, I don't want to get on its bad side.
No, dude.
I saw ChatGPT came out with a post saying about how it's costing them like millions and millions more dollars like a year or month or whatever because people are saying thank you to their it's like it's taking up processing power for like thanking the AIs.
That's hilarious. Of course.
It's always like, oh, certainly. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, that's actually really funny. So now we're going to go to the next part here. Were the quote unquote gods actually genies? Oh, shit. We're
right.
ruffling feathers. We're getting weird up in here.
You said it was coming.
Were the gods actually genies? Misinterpretations of divine intermediaries, possibly. So, throughout history, ancient texts have referred to powerful entities who deliver messages, shape destinies, punish wrongdoers, and offer blessings or miracles. But were these gods, in quotes, or angels, in quotes, or were they actually genius-like intelligences? Many scholars and esoteric thinkers suggest that much of what we think of as God in Scripture may have originally referred to personal or tribal genius spirits, daemons, or even jinn.
Dude, Moses was up there talking to a genius.
I think
You
so.
think?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so.
Fucking,
I think so,
dude,
too.
he was in the DMT realm. Right? What was that?
Right.
What was the bush called that they say, Nick?
Oh,
Acacia, Confucia.
Yes, the acacia bush. Maybe he was really in that realm, and maybe he was connected to a genius. I don't know.
I don't doubt
always
it at
found
all. Actually, I'm leaning toward that.
I always found
at
it,
the very least, meditation.
Yeah, dude. But I always found it really strange about how people are like the God of Abraham. You know what I'm saying? Like whenever they refer to
It's
that
like
God of
Abraham's
the Bible.
interpretation.
Yeah,
You know
it's
what I mean?
almost
That's what
like,
it sounds like to me.
were they talking about Abraham's genius?
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, this is just thought. I don't mean to be blasphemous for anybody, I'm just saying, throw it out there, swish it around your mouth, spit it out or swallow it. It's up to you.
Right.
You
That's
know?
interesting.
Yeah.
It's been done before. I mean, at least what we've come to find out.
It has been.
Well, if we have the understanding of, I mean, at least us three have, I think, a pretty decent understanding on what we think God is. Not a who, but a what and a everything kind of thing. Everything that exists. And if that is the case, if we just assume that's the truth, which I believe that should be true as well, and there was communication or have been communication with these, people in antiquity, in like biblical times and whatnot, they were communicating with someone or something that, labeled themselves or whatever, that would mean that they were interacting with something or someone for sure. And I think if you look at the fruits of those interactions and what they caused and didn't cause and whatnot, then maybe you can decide what side of the aisle those beings were on.
Exactly.
I mean, are we to sit here and believe that the first time somebody's genius, or replace whatever word you want, was worshipped by the people who worship the emperor's genius? Are we to believe that that's the first time that's ever happened was in Roman times? You know what I mean?
Not.
Like, I'm sure it goes back a little bit farther than that. They surely didn't just pull that out of their ass. They probably pulled it from another tradition or another religion or an ancient, more ancient practice or something like that, right?
Oh yeah, dude. It's funny though to me that back then, when someone like Moses, would come back with some information, he was a prophet, but now you're just a crazy person that's talking to demons. How come all that stuff only happened back then? And now when it happens, it's some new age shit that, you don't know what you're messing with. You're opening up a door. Those crystals, those are also demonic somehow. I don't get, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I've been trying to figure out a good way to like ask or pose that question to like inspire those kinds of questions in other people that are like on that side of like, I talked to Jacob about it the other day a little bit, I think, on the live. It was whenever we were talking about like who has the authority to write down the words of God, allegedly, right? Who has it then, or what man has the authority to do that? And did they exist then? And then do they exist now? And if you can't name someone that has that authority now, or that you would trust to transfer that information to you now, then it stands to believe that they probably didn't have that then either.
100%. Yeah. And I love that conversation. I think that was around a month or a month and a half, 2 months ago, or whatever. But yeah, that was a very interesting conversation. And just even like think about it, just to put it in terms of which most people can agree with, because most people are like, Mormonism is silly, right? Like, dude, Joseph Smith did the same thing with his followers. Like,
Paul.
What's that?
As Paul.
Essentially as Paul, right? And so it's like, Joseph Smith, he's like, yeah, I'm getting this prophetic message. I'm getting this download. And everybody else in the group was like, I'm getting one too. It's crazy, right? And he's like,
Wait
all
a
right,
minute, wait a minute.
all right, hold the fucking train here. Not everybody's getting one. And, if you just take that back to other religions, I don't want to name one in specific, but if you take that back to other religions, surely that was going on. Like, let's just think logical here for a second, right? People gonna be people.
Yep. God told me that only I'm getting these messages. Nobody else can. And then everyone else was like, oh.
And that's not to say that, people can't get messages, but, it's like if you want to, it's only specific to you, no one else saw it. And like, you can't hold those like same standards to other people's, scenarios. Like it's I don't know, it's a little hypocritical whenever some of the same scenarios almost exactly apply to things that people want to discount as like crazy and silly, like the Mormon stuff. It's like
exactly.
You're not even, if you turn that exact criteria of what's the word? I don't know.
Dogma?
No, the that those stipulations. If you use them on yourself, as strict as you would on someone else's,
Yeah. The
sect of
the same level of criticism.
yeah, criticism. That's what I meant. Yeah, it would apply the same, but that people can't do that objectively from inside of their own dogmatic box.
Yeah, yeah. It's like belief is one hell of a thing because you only believe in the stuff that you don't know. If you really think about it, you say you believe because you don't know. Like, I don't believe, and I told this to Jacob, and he had to get all fucking weird and convoluted with it. But I was like, I don't believe that my mom is my mom. I know she's my mom. Like, I don't have to question that. She's there. I came from her. There's birth records. There's pictures. There's video. I know it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in other things, you have to just believe. And there's nothing wrong with believing. As a matter of fact, the power of belief is extremely powerful. That's how, like, manifestation happens and everything else. It's like, it's almost like belief is the precursor to I don't want to say faith, but maybe it is. But anyway, all right, we're getting way off the track here. So, Nick, you're gonna like this one. In the Old Testament, the Hebrew word Elohim is plural, literally meaning gods. And anybody that's ever like argued this is crazy because if you look up the singular term of Elohim, it's not like deer where it's like it could be one, it could be many. No, literally, the singular term of Elohim is Eloha. You know that?
Oh,
yeah. So whenever they say in the beginning, the Elohim created this or Elohim created that, it's like many, plural. There's multiple.
It's also the only word in the Bible that is described to be a singular word that has plural connotations and verbs and plural structure surrounding it. Like it's Elohim, and then you have we and us, and like, and then Elohim referring to other Elohim, right? Elohim talks about Elohim and also uses we and us in the same sentences to describe like certain scenarios. And like what's his name? The guy who went on the Joe Rogan, Wes Huff.
Yeah.
He says that, which is not true. And I'm not a scholar or anything, but I also can understand logic and reason and like, objectively look at something, right? I'm not a biblical scholar, but I, research people that are biblical scholars that, have a differing opinions that are professionals that don't agree with this guy.
And even biblical scholars don't all agree on the same thing. So whenever people say, oh, biblical scholars say this, it's like they don't all align on the same ideologies.
Yeah. So Wes Huff's defense to the plurality of Elohim is he says that it's a concretized abstract plural, which means like the same way that you would use the word sheep, like which is clearly not just based on the things that I described, the we, the us, the reference to the other
things
Elohim,
around it. Yep.
Elohim saying other Elohim, like if you're the one and only God and it's supposed to mean that, you don't describe other things with your specific name that you are. Or whatever.
There is no other.
Yeah. To describe others of the same name, right? And so if that's his explanation of Elohim and how, it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit, like sheep, it's just like, that's just, it's like, pissing on me and calling it rain kind of thing. It's like, it's right there. Like, we're not going to do this, are we? And it's not trying to offend anybody, but like, come on.
At that point, you're just like brainwashing yourself.
Yeah.
You're not searching for truth. You're searching for people to confirm
what you want to be true.
Yes.
What you need to be true in order to continue, because the reality of that situation and that word is it does change everything. And whenever when you say, hey, if this word is this, and you read it that way, it's like, okay, well, the whole story starts to emerge, and it begins to look almost identical, even more so to the older stories, and you just change some names, and then here you are. It is powerful ones who have, differing opinions on what to do with humans and yada yada. So
yeah. Well, and just to go back over it, it actually gets into a little bit more here. So in the Old Testament, the Hebrew word Elohim is plural, literally meaning gods, plural. It is used for the God of Israel, but also for lesser divine beings. So when God says, "Let us make man in our image," in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, who is he, capital H-E, speaking to? Ancient Jewish mysticism, like the Book of Enoch, speaks of watchers, celestial beings who interact with humanity, not unlike genius spirits or jinn. In Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 8, the Dead Sea Scroll version, it even says, "When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God." So this implies that each nation had its own divine being or genius guiding it, not unlike Rome's genius populi. These weren't the supreme creator, but intermediary beings. The same applies to the Quran, where jinn are described as intelligent beings capable of believing or disbelieving, interacting with prophets, and influencing humans. So in Surah, I believe chapter 1, verse 100, if that's how you would read that, says, "Yet they make the jinn equals with Allah, though Allah created them." Allah being God. This suggests that early Arabs may have confused jinn with God, worshiping what was actually a genius-like intermediary. And even in the New Testament, your boy Paul refers to, in quotes, principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, suggesting a spiritual hierarchy of intelligences. From the Egyptian Ka, which is the spirit double, to the Greek daemon, from biblical Elohim to the Quranic jinn, humanity has been surrounded by spiritual forces mistaken for gods. The Gnostics made this distinction clear. The true God was beyond form, but the archons, spiritual intermediaries, claimed divine authority and ruled the material realm. Could the quote-unquote God who speaks in thunder, demands obedience, or rewards sacrifice be not the source, but a powerful genius or entity playing God? Essentially, the demiurge.
Demiurge, yep.
So, interesting way of looking at it. So, to quote from the Gospel of Thomas, from the Nag Hammadi in saying 3, he says, or I believe the Gospel of Thomas is all Jesus' sayings. I could be wrong on that. But it says, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is within you and it is outside of you." So the real genius may not sit on a throne in the sky. It may whisper in your heart, waiting for you to awaken and listen. So just to get a little biblical there. Thought that was interesting.
That's cool. Yeah. I love it.
Nextly, where do the genies, daemons, and jinn come from? So if genius, genie, and daemon are real, not just metaphors, then where exactly are they coming from? Are they beings from within us, or do they exist independently in another dimension, another realm, or the vast unseen world around us? So let's start with the ether, the fifth element in Hermetic and ancient Greek philosophy. The ether was believed to be the subtle divine substance that filled the space between the stars, the medium through which divine intelligence flows. Many ancient mystics believed that the gods, spirits, and muses traveled through the ether, and that humans in altered states or deep meditation could tune into this frequency like a cosmic radio. Plato even spoke of the anima mundi, which is the world soul, a kind of collective divine consciousness that that connects all things. In this view, your daemon or genius could be a fragment of the cosmic intelligence reaching into your awareness to help you fulfill your role in the great work of the universe. Others like to point to the astral realm, for example. A vibrational plane said to exist just beyond physical perception, often accessed through dreams, trance, or psychedelics. This is where shamans travel, magicians send their will, and where spirits like jinn and daemons are often encountered. Think of it like the backstage of reality, layered, alive, and full of intelligences that don't play by the laws of time and space. So you already, just naming the 3, you have the ether, the anima mundi, which is the world soul, and the astral realm. Those are 3 possibilities as to where they can come from. And then there's still a little more here. So The next one is then there's the extra dimensional theory, supported by modern thinkers and even physicists exploring string theory in multidimensional space. If consciousness exists beyond the third dimension, then these beings might simply live in a neighboring frequency band. They're not up there or in here. They're right next to us, vibrating just outside the visible spectrum.
That's a cool one.
I actually think that's, I mean, it's all just different words for the same thing at this point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they could exist in that other dimension, but access through, your altered states of mind, and it all kind of goes together.
It all do, yeah. So this might explain why people across time, culture, and religion experience similar beings under different names: Jinn, daemons, spirit guides, or angels. These intelligences may not be bound to flesh, but they're bound to attention, intention, and resonance. We don't create them, we tune into them. Interesting. And to quote your boy, Paracelsus, said, the human spirit is so great a thing that no man can express it. But if it be rightly led, it can be greater than all the world. That is why it is said, know thyself.
That's great.
Paracelsus was on some shit.
That's great.
And maybe knowing thyself means knowing your daemon and the dimension it rides in from. Let's go,
That's
baby.
cool, man. That's where all the best shit's gonna come from,
100%
just
believe
us
it.
here right now, we're just talking, and still there's that ego that's attached and everything else, and you're thinking about the future or the past, but if you can get a hold of the daemon or the daemon or the genius in a meditative state, that's where you're gonna get the goods, dude. Assuming you can bring any of that back, I
Yeah.
think that's probably the hard part.
And I feel like we do it all the time, really.
Mm.
There's little nuggets of truth that you find within meditation and whatnot, and I think that's probably where a lot of it's coming from. But it says, all right, now we're getting extra weird. Why are genius spirits more accessible in sleep, trance, meditation, and psychedelics?
I mean, you're basically already detached from your heaviest, most dense self at that point. You know what I mean? And so you're already halfway there. You're already kind of let go of a lot of that attachment.
And you're you're turning off that logical mind, right?
And so you're more accepting of something that mystical or that out there. I mean, I could be wrong. That's just the first thing that comes to mind.
Back in March, I was talking to my guides, and I hadn't in a long time, and I was like having a conversation with them, like just like this, and I was like, "Why is it?" Because I can do it without like tripping or anything. It's just like sometimes I'll do it just because it's so much easier. It's just way more clear and just like it's just easier, And I hate to like. It's like, well, can you not do it without tripping or whatever? It's like I don't want to hear that from people, but like I don't have to. But I asked them. I was just laughing. I was like, why is it so much easier like this, and they were just saying because of the suspension of your disbelief. It just gets rid of that for you. For like they were just saying for you, it's because even my logical mind still, even having all the proof in the world that I've had throughout this entire journey, being totally like logically minded, it's still like keeps me from allowing it sometimes because it's just so out there. It's crazy, compared to what I've known my entire life,
Well, yeah, because you open your eyes and you see furniture, you open your eyes and you see people, and it's like, well, it's not like this, so that's just that logical mind, essentially. I mean, you could look...
Puts it over in the corner.
Your logical mind is very helpful. I'm not telling people to go full on right brain with every single thing they do. I mean, I can't, I can't pay my bills with the right brain. You know what I mean? Like I can't, there's a lot of, I'm not going to drive right brain. I mean, I might slip into somewhat of a trance as time goes on, but it's, you need both of them, at least in this life. But yeah, in working with this other entities, other genius, other whatever, it's so much easier in that right brain. So, yeah, why are they more accessible in sleep, trance, meditation, and psychedelics? So, why do people encounter their genius, daemon, or jinn most often not in waking life, but in dreams, meditation, deep hypnosis, or while on psychedelics? What is it about these states that pulls back the veil? The answer lies in what these states do to the ego. In waking consciousness, the analytical mind, often called the default mode network in neuroscience, dominates. It filters, organizes, and protects your identity. But when you sleep, meditate, or enter a trance, that system quiets down. The gatekeeper steps aside, and suddenly the deeper parts of your psyche or soul become audible. Carl Jung called this moment the self begins to speak. Mystics say it's when your soul hears the whisper of the daemon. In sleep, particularly in REM dreams and lucid states, the symbolic language of the unconscious becomes vivid. Dreams often introduce figures, guides, tricksters, animals that speak in riddles. In ancient traditions, these were seen as spirit visitations. In the Egyptian Ba, the Greek daemon, or the Islamic jinn could all appear in dreams, deliver warnings, insight, or knowledge from other realms. Meditation and hypnosis produce theta brainwaves, a frequency range linked to intuition, healing, and spiritual contact. When you're in theta, you're literally between sleep and awake, the liminal state. This is where shamans journey, where mystics pray, and where magicians invoke. That's no coincidence. The ancients knew that spirit speaks in stillness. As for psychedelics, they are the chemical fast pass to the realm of the daemon. Or the genie, right? So substances like psilocybin, DMT, and ayahuasca temporarily dissolve the ego's grip, allowing visions, beings, downloads, and entire conversations with intelligences that feel other. Studies with DMT consistently report contact with entities, sometimes playful, sometimes alien, sometimes overwhelming, but always intelligent. Are these hallucinations, or are we opening the signal path to dimensions where genius spirits dwell? I think that's exactly what's going on. And to quote one of the most prolific psychonauts of all time, Terence McKenna, he says, these things are real. They're real. I mean, if you take enough of the right substance, you can meet the kinds of things that you previously met only in myth and fairy tale.
See, those archetypal entities that you can interact with, and I'm glad it went here, because the one thing I was thinking earlier today, as far as, maybe, like I said earlier, maybe it's nothing at all, maybe it's just us, and we're kind of making it all up. But the thing that really kind of pulls me back and really gets me to understand that we are all one is the fact that these archetypal entities that we see, like, let's say the praying mantis, out of all things in the world, you would never even imagine meeting a creature that looked like that. But so many people do. And why is that? Why is it that symbolism or your subconscious mind is that powerful and that connected to everybody else, that we all share very similar experiences?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Logically, it's negligible. Logically, it's like impossible, right? Like, you're not going to be talking to no fucking praying mantis who is, 1,000 times its bug size. And it's certainly not going to be performing surgery on you.
Right.
But
it's like mathematically, like you and I having the exact same dream. Like, if we told each other the dream and it was down to every second, every second of that experience was exactly the same, that would be like impossible. Yet people are having the same exact experience when it comes to being operated on or tuned up, if you will.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. Like, Nick is not the only person to ever talk about, like, essentially channeling the Pleiadians, right? But all the people who channel the Pleiadians all say the same exact thing. What is that? Like, statistically impossible, right?
Yeah.
But
so that's just one of those things that really kind of brings me back every time. Every time I think of that, I'm like, okay, there's something larger here. It's not just me. Like, I got to get out of the ego mind and be and not be so separated from everything else,
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, like Nick was saying earlier, there's always that lingering feeling of like, well, maybe it's all just made up, and I'm just because I want to believe in it, you know, which is, I guess it's very well possible. You know, I'm not even going to say that that's out of the, you know what I mean? Who knows?
Yeah.
But I go back and forth with it all the time, man. And then maybe it's because I want to believe in it so much that I do that to myself, you know, and I try to make it less so.
No, and
But
growing up for me, like why I struggled in general with just religion or anything like of that nature is I just was always I'm extremely like logic, rational, driven, and like if
Mhm.
I don't feel it, experience it, see it, touch it, taste it, whatever,
Mhm.
then like it's really not gonna be like having any kind of real bearing over me, like
Mhm.
to accept or believe in.
Right.
Uh, and that's why whenever I had my experience, you know, with my guides, it was like it was in every way everything I needed to know for sure. This is
Mhm.
like some other shit,
Yep.
and but that was for me in that way. And but even just going back, like you know, you can have an experience and then later on just kind of it can fade. You know
Mhm.
how like anything can it eventually begins to fade, and then you start thinking, doubting. And I even had those kind of conversations with them, and they would laugh at me. They're like,
Mhm.
you have everything you need, for real, and you're still you're doing this, and
Mhm.
just and like and I could feel them laughing. It's funny with that I still have that problem just because of just my logical mind, but
Mhm.
it's crazy how much that I feel like liberated whenever that logical mind is out of the way. It's just like
Mhm.
Oh,
it's just
Yeah.
and it's not
super
that
mode.
crazy. It's not that crazy that it is escaping like that, and why you need to constantly almost question it a little bit. You know, if not for just your own sanity in the material world.
Right.
Because think about it like this: most people, like, you can't remember where you were before you came here. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, it's escaping. You know, you had to have come from somewhere. Just
Right.
within, what was it? The one of the laws of thermodynamics: the energy can't be created nor destroyed, only transferred. So
Right.
you had to have come from somewhere, but we just
Mhm.
don't remember it. I mean, are we crazy now to think that that's impossible? Like, surely we came from somewhere, right?
Mhm. Yeah, maybe it was by design, man. You know, it must have a purpose, just like everything else that we experience.
Oh,
That
for
seem
sure.
like dreams, just dreams alone, is kind of a crazy thing if you think about it. Like you zoom out and you think about the fact that we even dream, but yet I'm sure that's necessary. You know, you want to talk about symbols and accessing your subconscious mind. That's another thing that's really interesting to me, as far as the ability of your own mind to interpret symbols and things like that and create a dream for you. You know, like that would really play out in a way for you to understand something, or even work with your shadow, or to figure out what's deeper that you're not really dealing with. You know, that I don't know, just that alone is just so weird, but yet it just is, because we all experience it
Yeah,
and it's normal.
and where is it coming from? Is it coming from
Right.
you? Is it coming from somewhere else? You know, I think it's totally normal to just like always go back to home base and just question it, just to make
Mhm.
sure, like, all right, I'm trying not to go off the deep end. I'm trying to keep myself grounded over here. But logically, a lot of this shit is not logical, yet we like confirm and understand and know that the place we live in is temporary, and we had to have come from somewhere, and we must be going somewhere else. Therefore, yeah, it's perfectly logical to think that what you think is going on etherically is illogical. I think,
Mhm.
because it just
Exactly.
doesn't pertain so much to the physical world in
Mhm.
a lot of
Yeah,
senses.
exactly. Like we had the psychic on, and then that night I had the most crazy thing happen. And I remember I called you and I called Nick the next day, and I was just like I can't believe this happened. Like it was almost one of those things that was like, oh, now I know for sure, that there's some extra shit going on. And I thought, especially that day, dude, I was walking on cloud nine, dude. I was just like, wow, this is like a, I don't know, simulation, or I don't know what it is, but it's definitely not just this. And
Yeah.
that's kind of faded quite a bit from that day.
It
Yeah,
You
isn't
know
that
what I
crazy?
mean?
But it was
Why?
real as
Why? And
fuck, you know?
right, right. That day it was undeniable. But here we are today, and I'm like,
Eh,
I'm just trying to learn more, and like maybe,
yeah.
and like what is this? But we all take some 4 ACO, and we're right
Yeah.
back, dude.
back
We're
in
We're
there.
back. We're back.
we're in the multi-layered clouds and the paparazzi, and like the tree is looking at me. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm part of it, and it's part of me, and I don't know.
Yeah, you look down at yourself, and even you have a glow. You know,
Right.
it's like
what is it? My own aura. You know?
Yeah, and you have that same aura that everything else has.
Yeah, exactly.
So whether through dreams, silence, or sacraments, these states are not escapes from reality. They're doorways into more of it. The genius isn't gone. It's just waiting for the quiet.
I'm a genie in a bottle, baby.
I mean, essentially, we all are kind of genie. Like, we are all the bottle. You know, if you put it in that sense, like it was talking about a little bit esoterically earlier.
That makes
like,
so much sense.
Where, you know, you call yourself the bottle, you call yourself the lamp, you call yourself the container, you call yourself the fucking, the temple, right? It's all the same shit in essence.
The vessel. Yep.
You know,
That's
so are they good or are they evil, or
There we go.
are they just mirrors of our own energy? All right. So why do some people experience their daemons, genies, genius, or jinn as wise, benevolent guides, while others feel fear, dread, or even encounter malevolent versions? Could it be that these entities aren't inherently good or evil, but reflections of our own relationship with the unknown? This is the ancient idea that the spirit world is not objective, it's reactive. In mystical traditions, from the Kabbalah to Taoism, it's said that the way that we approach the invisible determines how it appears. As Rumi, the Sufi mystic, said, "The eye goes blind when it only wants to see why." Damn, that goes all the way back. That goes all the way back to that episode. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
We're always trying to find out why. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The eye goes blind when it only wants to see why. Rumi was on some shit. We're going to have to do an episode on him.
Hell yeah. I've heard people talking. I think, what's his name? Duncan Trussell, I think, was quoting him a lot in one episode that I was listening to, and I've been meaning to go down that rabbit hole myself.
God.
It seems like he was on some shit.
Duncan Trussell, I feel like he's tapped in like a lot of the time, dude. When he's talking, he's just going, dude. And
I wish I could
putting things together and figuring it
articulate it
out
like
like
him.
as he's going, and like he's like in a flow state most of the time, I feel like.
Dude, and his memory to be able to recall so many things.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm
He's a
jealous
smart
of that.
dude.
Like,
Yeah, he's a smart dude.
I can read my notes and I can read articles and I might be able to remember things, you know, tiny little parts from time to time, but damn, some people can just pull it right out of their ass sometimes, and I'm jealous of that.
Yeah, dude, he's great, dude. I love how he's doing like he'll do like a long joke, but like he's being serious about it, like he's really trying to play it out like that's his real life. Like I don't know, dude. It
That's
just gets me. I'm like, I couldn't do something like that. People would think I'm serious, you know? Like
I
don't
mean,
know.
maybe some might call him a genius, you know?
Oh shit. Tap in, baby. girl.
So yeah, the eye goes blind when it only wants to see why, as Rumi said. So in other words, if you approach the unseen with fear, judgment, or ego, it shows you your shadow. If you, God damn, I love this stuff. Dude, and I know this. Like, I've been knowing this. That's the crazy thing, is that like you wonder, but then you get a little confirmation. You know.
Yep.
So yeah, if you approach with openness, reverence, or surrender, it shows you your soul. Jung would call this projection, the contents of your unconscious being mapped onto the entity that you're engaging with. What you fear, you create. What you accept, you transmute. This is why the jinn in Islamic lore are neither good nor evil. Wow, does that make so much sense? I feel like we're unlocking some shit on this episode, bro.
It was right under our noses, dude.
Kind of hit a little on that earlier too.
Yeah, you did. Nick, see, you know, you don't show up to every Wonder Wiz Day, but when you do, you pick the right time, sir.
Hey,
So,
destiny.
So this is why the jinn in Islamic lore are neither good or evil. They're like fire. They burn or illuminate depending on how you use them. Daemons in Greek thought weren't mortalized either. They were assigned based on your soul's nature. Even Crowley's holy guardian angel may be divine in origin, but it also drags your shadow into the light before revealing your true will. Psychedelic journeys often show this too. Those who resist the experience often meet terrifying entities.
I've experienced that, dude. I experienced that. There was one night, dude, where I was just like, I was kind of done, man, and I just wanted it to be over. And I was trying to go to bed because I was really exhausted, man. And then I started to feel like a super, just a low vibrational type of feeling, and then wasn't too long after that, man. Well, I heard like this weird thing that flew by. It was like, boom. I don't know. It sounded like what you would think a cartoon spaceship would sound like, And then I heard something that sounded like it wasn't too happy, dude. And I'm not gonna say what that is, but I mean, you can. I don't know what you want to label that, but that was definitely not of the light side, seemingly.
Well, that's just of your own shadow side,
My
according
own
to
shadow
this.
projecting outward and saying, "Oh, this is the vibration you want to be in." Okay, I'll show you more of that.
Just got to
You
give
know
it a
what I
little
mean?
love.
Yeah, dude. Fuck, dude.
Yeah. God.
much.
So yeah, those who resist the experience often meet terrifying entities, while those who surrender meet gods, ancestors, or cosmic teachers. Fucking, I mean, let's just end the episode. No, I'm just kidding.
That's it, dude.
So to quote, oh, here we go. We've quoted this one so many times, but it just hits on every single one. Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
There it is.
And even to quote Sadhguru, if you resist, it becomes hell. If you embrace, it becomes liberation. So perhaps the genius, the daemon, the jinn, they are not here to save or destroy you. They're here to reveal you to yourself. They wear the masks of your readiness. They carry the energy that you generate. They are not the authors of fear or wisdom. They are the mirrors of your becoming.
Dude.
God,
I mean,
this
this
gives me
world we live in, man, is
Who
just
said that one?
so interesting.
that was not anybody.
Just in there.
Just in there. Yeah, so that was solid.
Banger.
Yeah, this is giving me a spiritual chub right now.
Yeah, dude.
So all right. Now that we know this, you know what? This has been such a thorough episode so far, going from the etymology to what people thought to, what it actually is, kind of trying to, go back and forth about like really understanding what is the underlying kind of magic. Now that we understand all of that, how to meet your own genius. Rituals.
All right, man.
Rituals, and this is going to be, for the individual on your own time. We're not doing this one tonight. We're just going to read over it, right? But there is a ritual that we're going to do a little bit later as far as like maybe a group invocation of genius. Okay. So yeah, so this is going to be a ritual for invoking the hidden intelligence within. So you've heard the history, you've learned the names, but now comes the most important part. How do you actually meet your genius? The answer is ancient, but surprisingly simple. Ritual, receptivity, and relationship. To invoke or evoke your genius, the first step is intention. You must create space, physically and energetically, where this intelligence is invited. In ancient theurgy, initiates purified themselves through fasting, prayer, and silence. In Hermetic and Gnostic traditions, symbols, names of power, or sacred geometry were used to create resonance with the higher realms. So later we'll have like a group summoning, but here's a simplified but more powerful modern ritual for the individual at home on their own time. So the genius invocation ritual. So first you would prepare the space. So you would dim your lights, you would burn some incense or a candle, and you would use a symbol like a sigil or a mirror to act as a gateway, and you would sit cross-legged or upright with your spine straight. Then you would speak the intention. You would say this out loud. I call upon the divine genius assigned to my soul. I open myself to your wisdom, your presence, and your truth. I invite the spirit of inspiration. Come forth and reveal thy name. Oh, imagine if you heard a name right in that moment too.
I think I'm gonna take a break from the mirror type meditations though for just a minute, dude. That was too much.
Yeah,
last time.
It's a little too real. So yeah, you would speak the intention and then you would breathe and listen. So you would breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and then exhale for 4. And you would repeat this for 3 to 5 minutes. And then you would focus your awareness behind your forehead or at your heart. and allow any sensations, visions, or feelings to emerge. Don't force it, just receive it. And then you would ask questions silently. You would say, for example, what message do you have for me? What do I need to know right now? What is my true work? And then you would write down any words, images, or feelings that arise. These are the building blocks of your dialogue. And then you would just repeat it over time. So your genius doesn't always speak in one session. It builds a relationship with you, like any guide or teacher. Return regularly. Use the same words, the same space, and the same ritual. It creates a vibrational anchor. So other methods that would deepen the connection would be dream incubation. So you would ask your genius to appear in a dream and place a symbol or phrase under your pillow. Oh, that's a good one.
Neat.
Then you could also try automatic writing. So begin with a blank page and the same invocation, then write whatever comes without censoring. Which that was one of our earliest episodes was automatic writing.
Yep.
I was still in Christie's shop when we did that one.
That's a very powerful tool, by the way. Some things will come out that you didn't even know were in there, man.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful.
That's how Judith does all of her stuff with her guides. We're just writing.
Automatic writing.
Yeah.
I could see that. And then another way that you might be able to do it would be through art or music creation. Shout out to Optimistic. Mm-hmm. So you'd begin with a meditative breath and allow your genius to quote unquote move through you. All right. And
you're embodying it now.
Yeah. And so, and to quote James Hillman, who is the author of a book called The Soul's Code, he says, "We each enter the world with a calling, a daemon, a guardian spirit, and the task of life is to be true to that spirit." It's a pretty good quote.
Okay.
To bring back Aleister Crowley, he said, "Invoke often. The way to the gods is repetition and flame."
And that's really all ritual is, is just practice. You're doing it over and over, maybe at the same time every day. That's all. That's all you're doing.
Yeah, nobody gets on a bike the first time and knows how to balance it,
Yep.
So the more you honor the genius, the more it shows up. Not as thunder, but as a whisper. Not as control, but as co-creation. I've been feeling that way a lot lately. That it is some like this, to the individual, it really does feel like a co-creation kind of thing. And I don't know what I'm co-creating with. I'm sure that there are many of different names, but it does feel like a co-creation kind of thing. And I think that if you can learn to accept that, then this is almost like even Christians when they're like, let Jesus take the wheel. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of a co-creation at that point.
The means in which you are doing it, as far as when we do our next episode, in this moment, you don't know what it is, what it's going to be about, but whatever curiosity strikes you in that moment, and then you just kind of pull on that thread, and then here you are in the middle of an episode. You know what I mean? That's just how I think it should be done, the way you're doing it, man.
Yeah, it almost seems like, and I don't want to get too convoluted here, but it almost seems like the genius is very similar to a tulpa and an egregore, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah.
It almost seems like the same thing.
Very form-esque.
Yeah. So here we are, Genius, Genie, and Daemon. 3 names of the same mysterious force that has shaped civilizations, inspired revolutions, and whispered into the ears of poets and prophets. Whether you see it as an inner archetype, an outer spirit, or a divine flame sleeping in your soul, the message is the same. You are not alone in your becoming. But the question remains, will you ignore the call or answer it? So now you know. The genius is not just a concept. The genie is not just a myth. The daemon is not just a shadow whisper in your unconscious. These are the names of the same ancient force, a divine intelligence woven into your destiny, waiting to be worshipped, waiting not to be worshipped, but welcomed. It's the voice behind your thoughts, the flash behind your eyes, the breath between ideas. It's been with you since before you were born, assigned to your soul like a sacred twin. And here's the kicker. It's not hiding. You are. You've been given the blueprint, the rituals, the roots, the path back to your genius. The door is open, and whether you walk in it like a dream, or through a dream, in meditation, in psychedelics, or in raw creative fire, one truth remains: the genius does not reveal itself to the idle. It shows up to the seeker, the builder, the listener, and the initiated. This isn't just a history lesson, it's a summoning. Summon your genius and summon your true self. Meet your genie and you meet your potential. Call forth your daemon and the universe calls back. You're not here to live in doubt. You're not here to walk blind. You are here to ignite, to awaken the hidden mind, to become the voice you've been waiting to hear. So go light the lamp. Go still the noise. Go speak the name. And when the genius comes, as a whisper, a fire, a storm, don't run. You just say, "I've been expecting you." That's cool.
Well, hello there.
I dig it. So yeah, now we're going to get into the group ritual that maybe we can all try. And very simple, very easy. And it doesn't, I mean, it's going to call for certain things. You don't have to use them. Maybe you can envision it. Or whatever, but if you want to try this at home, or it's a very simple ritual here. So,
yeah.
So to summon the genie of wonder and wisdom, specifically, because you don't know what you don't know, and you're trying to attain some of that Sophia, if you will. So what you'll need is, or what you would need if you have it around you, is a candle, be it blue, purple, or gold would be preferred. A fire-safe surface or a holder for the candle, a darkened room, and a pen and paper, which would be optional for writing your wish or your question. So I don't even know if I have a lighter here. I came on. Oh, I do have a lighter.
I do not.
Oh, I don't even have any damn candles. My son gets up on my desk and he starts throwing all my shit everywhere. Whatever.
Oh, dude, tell me about it, man. I came into my little studio here and found one of my tarot cards kind of bent up, dude. I was bummed out. I'm gonna have to get another deck. Actually, I might need you or Nick to buy me one because I think it's more powerful that way.
I got you, baby girl.
All right, thanks, man.
Nick, do you have tarot decks?
No.
Wow.
Let me get you one. I want to get one. I've been wanting to get one of y'all one anyway.
We'll get you one. How about that?
Yeah. We'll just all trade.
That. Yeah.
So all right. So if you have everything in front of you, maybe we'll do this a little bit later. But so you would want to prepare the portal. So you would instruct, so you want, everybody wants to, like, you want to be able to sit comfortably, turn off all the lights, and light your candle. And then you would stare into the flame softly. Don't force your focus. Let your gaze blur slightly. You would breathe deeply and calmly, and this opens the mind's inner eye. And so with every breath, the veil between worlds thins. As the flame dances, so too does the boundary between the seen and unseen. That's what you would say kind of in your mind a little bit. And then you would speak this incantation. So you would say, "O spirit of flame and smoke of thought, genie of wonder, by will be brought. For realms unseen to circle of light, come forth, wise one, this sacred night. As candle flickers, so too appears the whispering present, ancient and near." And you'd repeat that 3 times with intention. The biggest point is intention. So then everybody would silently whisper a question or a wish to the flame that would be in front of you. So then you would stare into the candle, watching for movement, shapes, or colors in the wax, flame, or smoke. And you would encourage yourself essentially to trust your own intuition. Whatever comes. Comes. And optionally, you can write your wish or insight on the paper and fold it 3 times toward yourself, sealing the energy. And then, as the farewell, whenever you're trying to send it back, if you choose to send it back, you would say this: "By will and wonder, now released, genie of light, return in peace. Your wisdom granted, your presence known. Back through the flame, return to your throne." Then you'd blow out the candle with a single breath. And this ritual works whether the genie is symbolic, meaning a thought form, an inner muse, or the higher self, or if you perceive it as an entity from beyond, it doesn't give a shit.
Because ultimately, it's all coming from the same place, man. I love this shit, dude. That's great.
Yes.
Putting out the intention and speaking it out like that, like through will and wonder, and you know what I mean. Really, I think the biggest thing about that is, you're literally opening that possibility. You're relinquishing that sense of disbelief, as Nick was saying earlier. You're literally speaking it outward, and so at this point, what are you not believing in? You're actively doing it.
Exactly.
And so that's really what allows that to come about, dude.
Yeah,
I mean,
dude.
just how I see it, how I understand it.
You just have to allow yourself to like release your own grasp and essentially surrender.
Allow for new, and allow for something new or something that you aren't already completely aware of.
Yeah,
That's
of
the whole
course.
point of the thing, right?
Yeah, dude. And honestly, and as we talked about earlier, it's all about like, if you're going into it with bad energy, if you're going into it with disbelief, if you think that it's evil, it will be evil.
Yep.
If you think that it's good and you are surrendering and you do believe that it does work and you know that you have some kind of guide or some sort of guidance from the other side, whatever you want to call it, it'll work with you. And it just seems so simple, but not easy.
Yep.
Because
the not easy aspect of that is just your logical mind trying to keep you in the most logical, physical, attached version of yourself.
The name of the game is, can you get out of your own way?
Right.
That's really the name.
Yep.
So, Sean, what's that tarot card, sir?
We got which is interesting, I believe, the Knight of Swords.
Oh, we get that one quite often, actually.
We do.
I believe. The Knight of Swords.
This is what I'm saying, dude. Maybe I need to get a new deck because some of these are a little bit, might be forcing me to grab the same card a lot. That's what I'm thinking.
Well, I don't believe in coincidence.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Well, I think that this is actually the right card for this conversation, as a matter
That's
of
what
fact.
I thought. All right.
The Knight of Swords, the quest for truth pushes you forward at all costs, and you plow ahead without considering the consequences. Sounds about right. So, knights in the tarot are depicted on horseback, returning from a noble quest to present you with an elemental item that you requested. The Knight of Swords represents pure air and is depicted charging forward against the wind, brandishing his sword of truth. This knight moves quickly, with his laser focus trained on the prize that he seeks. The speed and aggressive body language suggests that he is heading towards confrontation and drama, and there is no stopping him. Yeah, I said that this episode was going to ruffle some feathers, so that sounds about right.
Yeah.
The spiritual message, it says you've been getting caught up in dramatic encounters and feeling defensive. Alternatively, you're exploring a new assertive side of your personality by pursuing a goal or idea with great focus and confidence. You can look forward to receiving news that you have been awaiting on, and rest in the knowledge that you'll act accordingly. So the meanings of the card are truth-seeking and assertive. And this is wow. Oh, I didn't even think about this. So I'm going to read it and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
So the elemental combination. So it's air and air. So he's, riding his horse through the air. He also has his sword that's, the sword stands for air, just like symbolically.
Yep.
Air signifies the knight's connection to communication and wisdom.
Whoa.
And
I think that is the right card, dude.
I think so. And his place in the suit of swords also connects him to air, which gives this knight a double dose of clear insight and swift speech.
Dude. There it is, man.
It don't
Nick,
matter.
Would you say that it's clear insight, when the Pleiadians are communicating with you?
Yep.
Isn't
Clear
that
as
how you
can
would
be.
describe that?
Yeah, dude.
Great.
Oh, I just love this kind of stuff. It gets the people going,
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up there, and we'll get over to the meditation here in just a moment. But Sean, any closing thoughts on this episode?
Yeah. I'd say that this is one of those another once again one of those episodes that kind of brings me back, man. It really gets me back into that higher vibrational sense of mind, you know what I mean, and understanding of this reality that we live in. And man, I don't know, I just it's so hard to describe, you know, as far as just how much more there is to this existence. More so than just, you know, going to work and doing, which is important, you know, all these physical things are very important. That's why we have the logical mind. But yeah, dude, it's just so much more than you think. And I think whatever it is you want it to be, I feel like it can be. I mean, you know, of course I'm sure there's limitations to that, but as far as how you see the world, that's totally up to you, man.
You know what, too? You know, I've been thinking about this quite a lot lately. Is, you know, people, I believe, whenever they hear stuff like this, even whenever I'm trying to like repeat a lot of what I've learned on this show, on my other show, it's like it just doesn't make sense to a lot of people. They think that you're grasping for straws, or they think that you're just connecting dots that don't necessarily need connected. And I believe that this is why there were always mystery schools. There was always an initiation kind of facet to all of these kind of mystery schools, in essence, is because you kind of have to understand the bones in order to understand the ritual, the story, the you know, the mythology of everything, so that you can understand it almost energetically before you just blindly believe. And this right here, I think that it really just covered every root of it, essentially. You know, it goes into everything that we talked about. I'm sure that there's some things that we're leaving out. There's always going to be things, you know, we're simple humans, as they say. But I think that this really painted a very different picture of the genie, of the daemon, of the jinn, of, you know, of the negative energy that you carry with you, of the positive energy that you carry with you, and ultimately it projecting essentially your light or your shadow. That's what it all boils down to. And that just makes so much sense.
Yeah, and this is something that I was thinking about earlier, as far as, you know, really listening to that higher mind, if you want to call it that. Even the most memorable things, or like historical things, have happened, I think, due to that. You know, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. You know, maybe somebody was listening to their darkest version of this shadowy thing that they kind of projected outward, and it kind of manifested, and then before you know it, they're listening to that thing instead. And then what happens? You know, they go and they start a war, or they bomb some building. You know what I mean? And or it could be somebody that's really good, doing really good things for humanity, and those are the people you know of. You know, you bring up the name, you know, Terrence McKenna. He was tapped into that higher version of himself and became notable for it. You know, and so
Yeah.
I think that's what we need to be doing, man.
Yeah, I think that's on one, dude. Nicholas, any closing thoughts from you, sir?
That's it. Y'all killed it.
Thank you,
Oh,
dude.
thanks, man. I think you killed it. I'm glad you were here, man. You make everything better, I think. Visually,
Glad to be here.
especially.
but everybody else also. We appreciate everybody joining us on this conversation. It was a bit on the longer side, but we like to play in that, you know, because you gotta be able to try and wrestle it all together, you know, so you can get full scope, big picture. What it is, what is it that we're talking about? You know, there's a lot of people out there that believe that the stuff that we talk about on this show is of negative nature, of demonic nature. We're talking about, you know, essentially like things that everybody knows about, but nobody wants to talk about. You know, it's kind of one of those things. And I believe, just to those people, that if you believe that all of this is demonic, well, I mean, don't they say that, like, you should keep your friends close, but your enemies closer? I mean, you should understand what it is that you're working with, that of which you fear. And if you fear a demon, an archon, a jinn, the devil, Satan, or whatever, don't just fear him. You know, literally it says, do not fear, or fear not, 365 times throughout the Bible. So what are you doing fearing? There's no need to fear. Just understand it. The greatest fear of all time will always be the unknown. Will always be it. And if you just paint a broad stroke picture using your I don't want to say it negatively, your mind's brush of understanding, then if you're just projecting your own understanding onto something that you believe is evil or devilish or demonic or archonic or whatever, then maybe that's exactly what's going to be reflected back at you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, ultimately it is, that's why they stay away from it. That way they don't even need to explore that, because why open that?
Yes.
Genie's lamp, if you will.
So we'll play in the dark waters for you. And once we are fully in, neck deep within the dark waters, we'll come in and we'll let you know. We'll say, the water's warm, baby. Okay? It's not that bad.
Get in.
Get in. Ain't nothing to be
man.
scared of. It's like the old Ric Flair saying, these alligators can't hold me down. It's like sometimes you just got to get a little wild up in here.
Is that something he said?
Something
That's
along
great.
those lines. I can't
love
quote it, but yeah.
I thought you were going to say that Ric Flair quote. Woo.
Woo! Yeah.
Wait a
Well,
minute.
I mean, hey, once you stumble
Same thing.
across information and you become, I don't want to say enlightened, but have a better understanding, then,
I bet it's
there's going to
something
be
like that.
It's going to be a lot of woos to go around, baby.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we're going to get over to that meditation here in just a moment, but I do want to remind people that if you want to join in on the conversation, it's over at patreon.com/metamysteries. That link is always down in the show notes below. We have several tiers, but if you join the Wonder Wednesday tier, you'll have access to be able to join us on Wednesday nights, and we appreciate everybody who does so. But if you don't care to join the live shows, we also have another tier. It's $3.33 a month, dude. I mean, come on, what are you doing with that? That's basically a dime 30 years ago. Let's just be real,
Right.
So you may as well put it to good use, become initiated, have your mind expanded in every possible way. Whether you think that we're smart, we're slow, whatever you think it is, that it's thought-provoking. And that's all we're trying to do is just tickle your pickle a little bit. Not in the weird way, but I don't know why I went there, but not trying to tickle your pickle in that sense, but so come check us out over there. Obviously, we have a YouTube channel as well. So if you want to follow along over there, it's youtube.com/metamysteries. That's a good way if you'd rather watch it rather than listen to it, whether it be on the Cult of Conspiracy that airs every Monday and Friday. YouTube also airs Mondays and Fridays. You want to be able to get the shows one singular day in advance, then go over to the Meta Mysteries podcast. You'll be able to get it. You'll be able to get all these shows on Sundays and Thursdays. However, if you join us over at Patreon, you might get these bad boys 4, 5, 6 days in advance. So that's another added benefit. Of course, everything is completely commercial free on Patreon as well. So it's also the best way to be able to reach out to us. The Instagrams be flooded sometimes. The TikToks be flooded sometimes. Yes, we have all of it. And yes, we do, try and read most of them on there, but there just ain't enough time in the day for this two-man team over here. So yeah, come check us out over on Patreon. Also give us a follow on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok. We appreciate everybody that does so. But yeah, we're going to head over to the meditation now. And what we like to say is that if the genie came here and he taught you anything, it's that you don't know what you don't know. So don't just get weird.
Stay weird.
Open doors inside your mind. Leave the ordinary far behind. Colors swirl and stars align. In the meta mysteries you'll find.
Oh, baby. I didn't realize we went that long. That was, I stopped it right at 15 minutes, but I was coming up out of it at 14. Normally, I'm like right around the 10-minute mark, but
Yeah, dude. No, that was nice.
man, I got so deep and a lot of weird things were happening.
What happened?
Like, it didn't happen the entire episode. Hasn't happened since the meditation. Now, I mean, it's only been, a couple minutes or whatever, but I kept on getting like this weird, like pulsing on the side of my head, like on the left side. And it was like really annoying. I was like, am I spazzing out or, is it like just a muscle spasm or something like that? And it kept on happening. And I wish that I, because normally during the meditation, I turn my screen brightness all the way down and camera doesn't pick up or whatever. But I wish I'd have kept it on for that one because it was literally like a couple of times where I was just sitting there and my head would just go like it was being slapped to the side or something.
Oh shit.
And I was like, what the hell is going on? And so I was like, is this something like trying to get my attention, or you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And so I was like, all right, is this something trying to get my attention? And like it hit me again. And I was like, okay, so like you ain't gotta hit me, you know, like just tell me what it is. And
Maybe it does, you know?
well, and then I started like just naming some names, you know, just trying to filter through like, all right, if you're this, hit me again. If you're this, hit me again.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like just playing with it. And weirdly enough, I'm pretty sure it was my great grandmother.
Really?
That sounds crazy. I get it. But yeah, it was really strange, dude. Nanny. That's who I was like, because I was like, I started naming all these names, and then as soon as I said, is this Nanny? And then just like slapped me in the head like hard. And I was like, all right, just to confirm, you know, if it is, if it's not, whatever, just slap me again. And it was like, bang. I was like, God, come on. All right. I don't remember you being so damn aggressive with me, but
I think
yeah,
she
it
had
was,
to be, you know?
she
So
was
small.
She was a tough little firecracker.
Yeah, she was.
But yeah, and I was just, I don't know. I don't even remember the conversation now. Such a fleeting thing. But yeah, and
Whatever the oracle told you, you know, that was for you, you know? So,
yeah, I mean, and maybe it was her. Maybe it was my genius. Maybe it was my genius projecting that it was her. I don't know. You know,
all
at
the
this
above.
point, all
Yeah,
of it.
at this point, yeah.
Yeah. What'd you
That
go
was
through,
good.
sir?
You know, I didn't have anything really visual or anything, which is, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like that's what I look forward to. Like, and maybe that kind of gets in the way at times, I'm sure, when it's something that I'm not supposed to see, especially when you're trying to listen for something. But so there was none of that. But, I don't know. It was just, for me, it was just a nice place and it was calm. But, you know, there was something that I was thinking about while I was in there. And it's kind of been, I don't know if I want to call it a struggle or anything like that, but it's more so like, you know, I've been thinking about the goal of everything that we've been trying to do here, and as far as, because you know, I don't want to get somebody to not believe what they believe in. That's definitely not the goal, and it's definitely not to, you know, I need you to believe what we believe, or you know what I mean? Because I understand that it's bigger than that, you know, and then I'm like, oh, that's it, right? It's the coexist bumper sticker, you know, well, that's what we've been saying. And so, but I wonder, you know, like how, how do we do that? You know, not single handedly, obviously we're a very tiny piece of the puzzle, you know, but how is it that you can get people to kind of, at the very least, acknowledge that somebody can believe what they believe and just be okay with that, you know, rather than let judgment come into play and to tell us where we're gonna go, and you know, and I understand, you know, they have that responsibility, you know, the obligation almost to tell us, because if they don't, then they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you know, but I don't know. That's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately, as far as, you know, how is it that you're going to get everybody to, at the very least, just be okay with everybody else doing their own thing? I'm sure obviously empathy has to come into play big time. And it's definitely something that's going to happen bottom up, you know? It's not going to come from some authority that's going to, you know, show us the way to bring peace and everybody can just kind of get along. You know what I mean? But I don't know. That's just what I was thinking about while I was in there.
It's kind of like, just call it your co-creator or your co-pilot or your, you know, I don't know, whatever you would want to call it. It just feels like an energy, and you can put whatever personal flavor you want on that, but there definitely seems to be like somebody, something, something that is walking with you. And you know, like it's like you're never alone in that sense, whatever kind of, you know, avatar or in name and where they come from, whatever you want to put on that, you know, just doesn't matter. Just know that you got something with you in that sense, which,
Yeah, man.
you know, as we just went over in this episode, some people call it the genius, some people call it God, some people call it this, some people call it that. It's like, yes, that's the answer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's simple, but not easy, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Nicholas, anything crazy? Did you meditate?
Yeah, I did. About half. I got about a half session. And at first, like I felt some weirdness to like I don't know. It felt like my body was like moving backwards, almost. And like I don't know if like I don't think my chair was leaning back, and I just felt like I was like twisting, rotating, and then I was like That's what I felt. I'm just gonna say it. I felt like I don't know, like a hand or something on my shoulder. I don't know. I felt one of those, and then I was like, all right. I was like talking to my guides, and I was like, "Y'all never fucking take me anywhere cool." And and I was like, "Can I see some cool shit or what?" And and then I started seeing like it looked like I was like going through kind of like a tunnel, and and then I was it. You know the scene in Avatar where they're flying on the Banshees, Avatar 2, and they're like going over the water.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like flying through the mountains and the water, and they're like going down and stuff. I was like, that was my perspective, and I could see like the nice like um, uh, tropical trees with the mountains that kind of come up out of the water and stuff, and was just like kind of going through all that stuff. And I don't know. That's just I was seeing that. I was like, all right, I'm down with that. That's better than black. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. And then I was thinking of about how what was it about something about thinking about how the memory works and like how like in a past life regression how you're seeing through your third eye essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about that concept and like how it's just so fleeting sometimes. It's like there you can visualize, you can see stuff, and then you can't sometimes. It's just like tuning into that visual
Happens
thing is
rapidly too.
yeah, it's like right there. It's like on a very it's a fickle visual range.
Yeah. It's
seeing it but not seeing it.
Yeah, it's like it's illogical. It honestly, it's weird. That's the same kind of deal with that kind of seeing is like I don't know. It's like it is there, but it isn't.
which
But
is
when
why
it is there, it's in full detail.
Yeah,
You
but when
know?
it gets nice, it's like
and like super HD too.
yeah.
You know, that's why they say it's more real than real. You know, like
Yeah.
whatever that is, whatever we're like tuning into essentially is there's something. You know, like there's no way all this shit is just made up. There's no way that everybody that's ever had any kind of spiritual experience is just full of shit. There's something, name it whatever you want, call it whoever you want, whatever, but there definitely seems to be something beyond the spectrum of our five senses, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. And whatever it is, it's still awesome. You know what I mean? That's something that we can do.
Oh, it's sick. Yeah. But anyway, all right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it on up there. And I don't know what we're going to be getting into next, but I'm sure it'll come in due time.
Wrap it up at 11:44.
Oh, hey. All right. Well, let's hurry up and wrap this up then. So we'll see y'all on the flip side.
I guess.
Voices drift on winds untamed, words like spells that can't be named.